So let's look at quantitative reasoning. Right. So what is quantitative reasoning? It's a lot of real world maths in everyday scenarios. And like I said, it's your basic GCSE stuff. So it's ratios, percentages, averages, etc. You're going to be interpreting data from charts and tables a lot. Most of the questions are interpreting data. And you have 36 questions to be completed in 24 minutes. You're going to be given that basic calculator, and practicing your mental maths really helps. Multi-step logic is needed for many questions, and we'll get onto that when we go to the practice questions. So the types of questions that you're going to have is time and decimal calculations, data interpretation and logic, wordy questions, proportional reasoning, percentage change, simple versus compound interest, and tax calculations. Someone asks about sharing the slides. I'm not super sure. I know that you guys get the recording. The slides Dr. Yusuf might also send to you. I'm not 100% sure on that one. So debunking some of the QR questions, it tests your ability to interpret numerical data and solve problems under time pressure. It's basic maths. It's not rocket science. It's GCSE level maths concepts, but it's just quick. Skip strategically. So you've got about 40 seconds per question. So it's more about speed and strategy than difficult maths. If you get a really long data question that requires you to go through many, many steps, it would be probably best for you to skip it and come back to it at the end if you've managed to have some time. 3 pillars of QR success are obviously accuracy, so avoid careless errors and double check. Efficiency, do them as quickly and remove unnecessary steps. Use a calculator smartly. And strategy, know the common question types and have methods for each. Eliminate impossible options early. Okay, the UCAT calculator. Familiarize yourself using the calculator's keyboard shortcut so you can input numbers quickly without clicking. Use it wisely. And what they mean by that is don't put in every simple calculation into the calculator because you're going to be wasting time. This is where mental maths comes in, because sometimes it's a lot quicker and better for you to just do the maths in your head than use a calculator. And that's what gives you the speed. Okay. Some useful conversions. I'm sure you guys know most of the fractions ones. Then other ones that are important are miles to kilometers. That one people might not know. 1 mile is 1.609 kilometers and 1 kg is 2.2 pounds. They like to use miles and pounds in the quantitative reasoning exams to sort of confuse you because we're metric. You want to be able to, prior to taking the QR, develop your mental math skills quickly by practicing your quick arithmetics and memorizing handy conversions to rely less on the calculator, like we said, and then only use mental maths for straightforward steps and save the calculator for when you truly need it. And estimation is really good because sometimes you look at the answers and they're thousands apart and you're like, I can cancel off at least half of them because they're just ridiculous. So someone asks, do we get any kind of paper to do calculations? Yeah, you get the whiteboard paper-esque thing. And you can ask for more if you've run out. Can you say the conversions again? So like I said, you're going to get these slides, but we can quickly have a look. So 1 mile was 1.609 kilometers and 1 kg was 2.2 pounds. But you will get these, you'll get the recording at least. So, okay. Strategically skipping questions, like all the other subsections, skip early if needed. If a question looks overwhelming, guess an answer, flag it and move on. Even when you flag something, it's good to guess an answer because just in case you don't have time to come back at the end of that subsection to fill an answer in then, because at least you've got something down, which is better than leaving it completely blank. And all questions are 1 mark, so skip and return to the harder questions because there's no point wasting your time doing only one when you could do like 3 others in that time. And it's not failure to skip. It keeps your momentum and confidence up and maximizes your score. So once again, you can have a look at the Aspiring Medics interview resources. We've got a lot online if you'd like to subscribe to any of it. So let's have a look at some quantitative reasoning questions. I'm going to have a look at percentage change because they like asking about percentage change, where I'm sure you guys all know this, but you've got the new value divided by the old value, subtracted by 1 and multiplied by 100, and estimate if the options are far apart. So we've got a practice question up. Let me put a poll on for this one and I'll give you guys, oh no, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to have a go at it. Is there a way you can zoom in? I don't think that is. I can try. So the first question, you might know the answer, so I might not put a poll up. I won't put a poll up for this one because I accidentally clicked to the answer, but we'll still go through it. So what are you guys thinking? Just put it in the chat. I mean, again, I clicked through the next one, so if anyone wants to, yeah, it's A. So if we look at the working for this question, Maria's mascara discount. We've been told that Maria, the store manager, gets 22.5% discount on everything in the store. All other colleagues only get 12.5% discounts. She gets 10% more. How much cheaper is a mascara for Maria to buy than for other colleagues? So first thing to do is calculate the difference between the two, because you don't want to calculate the 22.5% discount and also the 12.5% discount. It's a 10% difference that you get there. They've done it the long way, but really you could have just, because the mascara costs £12.50. Really, the easier way to do it is to just multiply that by 0.1, because that's 10%, and you would have got 1.25, which is the correct answer. So this actually, the explanation that they've given you is correct, but really you don't want to be doing that. You want to be, minusing the percentages and then just calculating 10% of £12.50. Are we allowed to use calculator, or is it non-calc? It's calculator, but like we said, for this one, you didn't really need a calculator because you needed to realize that it was a 10% difference, and then 10% is 0.1, so just multiplied 0.1 by £12.50. Okay, let's do the next one. Table below shows the average typing speed and error rate of people of different abilities. So we've got level, and then on the X columns, we've got number of words typed in 1 minute, number of errors in 1 minute, number of words typed in 3 minutes, number of errors in 3 minutes, and so forth. What is a percentage accuracy, error-free words, as a percentage of total words of a slow typist who types in 5 minutes? So I'll put a poll up for this one. So looking at the poll, it's pretty much just split between, oh, and there's a couple actually. So a couple people have put down B and D, but the correct answer for this one was A. And the way that you did it is that we looked at what it says. So it says we've got slow typist accuracy. So we're looking at the level of slow. And then it also says types of 5 minutes. So we know we're looking in the top row, and then we're looking for 5 minutes. So we're looking at these two. And then it says percentage accuracy, so error-free words as a percentage of total words. So it's told you the number of errors, and it's told you the number of total words. You just minus it, and you end up with 63. And the total number is 84. So you do 63 divided by 84 times 100. Now, this is a case of where it might be easier to pop this in the calculator, because 63 divided by 84 is not an easy calculation to do. So you, in this case, the only calculation that I'd recommend putting in your calculator are 63 divided by 84, because you know how to multiply that by 100, and that would 63 divided by 84 would give you 0.75, and then you'd know what the percentage was. Is the UCAT calculator hard to use? No, it's really simple. It's much simpler than like normal calculators. So it's very, very easy to do. Okay, lots of questions about improving mental arithmetics. Honestly, just do the UCAT quantitative reasoning questions and time yourselves, and you'll get better the more you do them. Okay, so simple versus compound interest. That's another question that they love asking. Simple interest, as you guys definitely know, is adding a fixed percentage yearly, and then compound is using the memory M function. Now, what that means is that if we started with £5 and we had compound interest, and we had £10% compound interest, at the end of the first year, you'd end up with what? £5 and 10 pence. But then to calculate the complete after, well, how much you'd have after 10 years, you'd have to do another 10% of £5 10 pence. So it wouldn't just be an extra 10 pence, you'd have to calculate the next percentage. Okay, so this is our next question, and let me put a poll up for this one. So most people seem to have voted E, which is the correct answer. So 2023, the number of salmon caught using the fixed engine method increased by 10% from 2022, while the number of sea trout caught using the net and global method decreased by 25% compared to 22. Total number of salmon and sea trout causing these two methods in 2023. So our table is showing us 2022. Salmon fixed engine. So we're looking at salmon fixed engine, so 2,110, and sea trout, we're looking at and cobalt, so we're looking at 1,160. Then what I would do in this case is write down those two numbers separately next to each other on the whiteboard and create two separate sums, because you know that it increased by 10% and decreased by 25%. So put these two sums next to it on your whiteboard and then pop it in your calculator, because these are an example of sums which would be hard to do in your head, and it would definitely be worthwhile to do on your calculator and would save you time. But yes, okay. We don't have time to go through all of the simple and compound interest ones, so let's have a look at tax calculations. So using marginal tax brackets to calculate each layer of tax. So that's essentially, I'm sure you guys all know how tax works, but it's deciding which bracket someone's income falls into and then taxing them based on that. But there's questions on that particular concept. So this is our first question. Accounts clerk of a small business was given the employee's weekly timesheet details to work out the net pay to prepare their pay packages. So you've got the breakdown of each employee's pay, and the calculations are incomplete where you've got the X's here. And then you've got a set of rules to work out what the X's are. I'll leave you guys for a couple of minutes to have a go at this one. So someone said in the polls, I'd skip this. That's fair. This is an example of one of the harder ones that you're going to get in quantitative reasoning. So that's completely fair, but we're going to have a go at it right now because we're not in a time situation or an exam. There's too many words. Yeah, lots of words in this one. But let's break it down together. So we've got rate of pay is paid hourly from the number of hours worked in the week. So we've got our we've got the hours worked for each employee, and then the rate of pay for each employee. And then we've got the gross pay for each employee. So hours worked, rate of pay is per hour, gross pay is total hours, national personal allowance, income tax, and total deductions, and then net pay. So how much does employee E get paid hourly? I'm not going to poll this one because it's quite hard. Maybe I have polled it actually. 1 second. I think I may have polled it so we can have a look. On those kind of questions, should I just read the question first? Yeah, you should. This would be a good example of reading the question first. So we've got a big mix here. We've got B, C, D, and E. Shall we have a look at what the right answer is? Our answer is C. So how do we break down the maths in this case? We've got the hours worked by employee is 43.5, and we know that the gross pay is 345. So in this case, even though there's a lot of information, the actual calculation is quite easy. It's just 345.83 divided by 43.5, which you just pop in your calculator. So this is an example of question where you've got a lot of information dense stuff, and that might scare you off. And I completely understand why you'd want to skip it and do the easier ones and come back to it. But actually, when you look at the calculation that you're doing, it's really easy. And you're putting in one calculation to your calculator and that's it. It doesn't even require mental math. So this is an example of something that you shouldn't really skip because the actual calculation is quite easy and you just had to go on to read it. How many seconds? How long do you have per question in the section? About 40 seconds. How many seconds of trying mental maths would it take? Best to use the UCAT calculator. How many further seconds would it take you before your flag and skip? Right. So I don't think you should, if you think that something's going to be really hard and you don't think you're going to be able to do it in mental math, you should just put it in the calculator. So I think it's more a question of understanding which questions you should be using the calculator for and which questions you should be doing mental maths for. So like this question, I wouldn't have even attempted to do mental maths for because nobody's dividing 345.83 by 43.5 in their head unless you're a genius. So this would have been I would have immediately on the spot just put it in the calculator and not even tried. But certain questions when, for example, we were calculating 10% of 12.5, I would have known that I can do that in my head really quickly and I wouldn't have put that in the calculator. How many further seconds would it take you before you flag and skip? To be honest, I think if I don't understand the way to approach the question within the first like 20 seconds, I just flag and skip. Because if you don't understand the way to approach the question, it's going to take you longer to even understand the question and then longer to actually do the question. Okay, let's have a look at a different type of calculation. So we've got proportional reasoning. So this is another type of question. Let me pull up the poll for this one. The votes are slowing down. I sense that people are getting tired from doing quantitative reasoning questions, which is fair. Can you not use a physical calculator during the UCAT? No. You're not allowed to take it in with you, which is quite sad. What are you allowed to take in with you in the exam? I don't think you're allowed to take in anything apart from your ID card to prove that you're the person who's sitting the exam, and maybe a bottle of water. But nothing more than that, as far as I remember. Okay, so what is the answer here? It's C for everyone who popped down C. We had a bit of a split this time. A couple of people popped down A, B, and D as well. But let's have a look. So we need the ratio of the total number of salmon caught using the fixed engine method, and the total number of sea trout caught using the cable method from 2018 to 2020 inclusive. So this is where you definitely use your calculator because you're adding up fixed engine salmon from all that entire column and then net and cable sea trout from all of that. So we've added them up, and then you want the ratio of the total number of salmon to sea trout. So in this case, it's really important to divide the salmon by the sea trout to get that ratio. Otherwise, if you did it the other way around, you'd get a ratio of 3 to 4, which luckily isn't actually an option in here. Why did you divide by 20? No, we wouldn't be dividing by 20 to get the ratio between... Oh, well, I suppose the reason why this example is divided by 20 is that you get to the simplest ratio of 4 to 3 when you divide 11,120 and 8,340. You get to 4:3. So another way of calculating ratios, if you don't just want to divide one by the other and then use percentages, is by dividing it by the highest common factor to then get the simplest ratio, which is what they've done here, because the highest common factor of 11,120 and 8,340 is 20. So they've divided it. And then, for example, if they divided by 20 and they got numbers like, for example, 20 and 15, it's much easier to simplify that down to 4 to 3, 4:3. You could see that a lot more clearly. How would you quickly find the HCF? So that I don't recommend quickly finding the HCF and ratio questions for that reason exactly, is because sometimes and quite frequently it's really hard to spot the highest common factor, which is why here, if you divided the biggest number by the smallest number, you'd get like 1 point something, and then you could multiply it up to 4:3, which I find easier than like, so for example here, let me pop it in my calculator and I'll show you what I mean. If you divided 11,120